unfinished business. We have to go back to where it all started.
Lucky us.
One thing's for sure. It's gonna be a hell of a reunion.
Hey guys, Smiling Reviewer here, and today we are going to talk about Black Widow. Black Widow is directed by Australian director Cate Shortland, and is the newest Marvel film that we're finally getting after such a long wait. And by such a long wait, I'm not only referring to the fact that this got delayed an entire year because of COVID, but this is a movie we should have gotten way back when Black Widow was introduced to us in 2010's Iron Man 2. This movie takes place in between Captain America Civil War and Avengers Infinity War, during the time that Natasha Romanoff was on the run from the government for breaching the Sokovia Accords, and it follows a story that forces her to confront a past that she thought she had left behind. I'll start with the things I loved about the movie. Florence Pugh as Yelena was fantastic. Despite only being 25, she's already proven that she has such a wide range of acting, from roles such as Fighting with My Family to Midsummer to Little Women, and now a Russian assassin in Black Widow. Despite her character being an absolute badass assassin, her character also had another side to her, which was this naive charisma that really made her feel like a young girl who never had the chance to really live a normal life. And I thought she played both those sides of her character really well, and I can't wait to see more of her in future MCU projects. David Harbour as Red Guardian is also such a standout of the movie. David Harbour was that actor who always randomly showed up in movies in smaller roles that I'd be like, oh cool, that guy. But it was his role as Jim Hopper in Stranger Things, where he truly shined and showed me how incredible of an actor he could really be. He can play such a gruff, serious, tough guy so well, but Red Guardian was such a fun character because he also had this very childish silliness to him that was also endearing, that made him such a joy to watch. I imagine David Harbour must have had a really great time playing this role. And I really hope Marvel also brings him back in a future project, because he was just such a fun character to watch on screen. The action scenes in the film were generally pretty cool. Some of them were pretty creative, but they just weren't all that memorable to me, to be honest. Like, there wasn't a single action scene that particularly stood out or felt like a great scene I'd want to come back to, like for example the elevator fight scene from Winter Soldier. And I think that was a result of what was my biggest disappointment of this movie, which was Taskmaster. The villain I was so excited to see make their debut in the MCU was just a major letdown. Without spoilers, I don't mind what they did with this certain character in this movie, and I actually thought it was pretty cool, but like, the character didn't need to be Taskmaster, you know? Like, it could have been any other character, really. But making this character be Taskmaster was a complete waste. I was also under the false impression that Taskmaster was going to be a major villain of the movie. I honestly thought he was the main villain, and that was completely wrong. He's definitely not the main villain. All of his action scenes are already in the trailer, which was super disappointing. But I just wish they saved the character for the future to do it properly. He's such a menacing villain with such a cool skill set, which is he spends all his time watching the fighting skills of various superheroes, so he can mimic them perfectly. And that skill set is displayed in this movie, and it's really cool, like the entire, 2 times it's shown. I would have absolutely loved to see him as a recurring villain throughout the MCU who faces many of our heroes. And every time he shows up, it's the equivalent of the Terminator appearing, and you're just like, oh shit, it's that Taskmaster guy again. So that was a major disappointment for me. The movie was totally fine though. It's a pretty standard MCU film at this point, and you kind of know what to expect. I wasn't bored, but it didn't necessarily do anything that new or interesting. It had a few good emotional beats, but in standard Marvel fashion, they're normally shunned by some random comic relief joke that alleviates the scene of any emotion it had, which is a pet peeve that I'm starting to grow more weary of in the MCU. But despite that, I honestly think a major reason this movie just didn't quite work for me was the timing. This movie honestly feels like a great follow-up to where we originally left off in Captain America Civil War. But Captain America Civil War was 5 years ago, and since then we've had like 10 Marvel movies. It just feels so late. It really is such a shame this movie came so late. But just the fact that it did come late, and especially after knowing this character's journey ends, I just wish it felt more conclusive to the character of Black Widow. And I wish it was a story that, despite being set in the past, still heavily added to her journey in hindsight. But as it stands, it just feels like a standard solo journey film. And that would have been totally fine had it come out a few years ago and we didn't know the ending to this character's journey. But since we do know the ending of this character's journey and we know it doesn't end in this movie, the stakes just don't feel as high. Especially in scenes where it feels like the odds are against her in this film. Like, we know she shows up in Avengers Infinity War unscathed, so that means she's more or less going to leave this movie unscathed. I don't know, I was just hoping my reaction to finishing this movie would be like, wow, I'm really glad they told us this story of Black Widow's life, because it really puts her entire character arc in perspective, and also her final decision in Avengers Endgame. But my reaction leaving it was more like, this would have been significantly better had it come out before Avengers 3 and 4. Why are we getting this story now? It's not that the character of Black Widow doesn't have any development in this movie. It's just that I personally felt she didn't get any conclusive development in this movie. She just gets good standard character development. But it feels inconsequential because we know we're probably never going to see this character again. I also can't help but feel this probably would have been better as a Disney Plus show, because the movie seems to want to be a movie that gives us a satisfying conclusion to the character of Natasha Romanoff, but it also does the standard Marvel thing of wanting to set up future characters and future movies, which in my opinion ultimately takes away from the impact of the individual movie and character. Like, a Disney Plus show, as we saw with WandaVision, Falcon and Winter Soldier, and Loki, is a fantastic way to flesh out these smaller characters, as well as setting up things for the future. But that's because they have the added benefit of having a much longer runtime to work with. But all in all, Black Widow was a fine action movie. I'm sure many people will enjoy it, but it just didn't do anything that special for me. So Black Widow gets a 6 out of 10 for me. It just wasn't quite the satisfying conclusion to this character's story that I was hoping it would be. If anything, it put more into perspective the fact that this character never quite got the justice she deserved earlier. Anyways, thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed this review. Don't forget to leave a like if you did, and subscribe for more content, and I will see you guys in the next one. See ya!